What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Matt is going to be joining me in just a moment to talk week 11 of the NFL season and start looking forward to week 12. Kind of crazy that it is already the playoff stretch run. Before I do my little opening segment here, for those of you that listened to the podcast last week, wanted to apologize. I know something happened with the audio where it got really messed up, and I used all of the AI tools that Riverside has to offer to try to fix it, but it still wasn't great. I just felt like the content of the podcast was so good that I wanted to put it out still because we really enjoyed that episode. So for those of you who suffered through some of my audio issues last week, really appreciate you. Also, good news and bad news. The good news, we are no longer recording from the world's most boring all-white room in my house because the renovation has started. Instead, we are in my parents' beautiful kitchen, where we will be for the next couple weeks or their foreseeable future until our house is completely renovated. And the next time you see a background change, I will be in my brand new office that I am super looking forward to. Before I bring Matt in, I did want to talk a little bit about my college, Western Michigan, and their football team. We talked about this last week. They had 2 games remaining, and their MAC championship hopes were in their own hands, destiny in their own hands, which is a terrifying thing to say if you are a Western Michigan Broncos fan and have the history with this team that Matt and I have with them. It's a big deal to us because Western only has one conference championship, and that was in 2016 when they went undefeated and went to the Cotton Bowl. And then I don't know what happened next. That game didn't exist, unfortunately. Definitely did not lose to Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl. And before that, they had a contested share of a MAC championship from like 1966, so one that doesn't really count. So it's a big deal to the school. It's a big deal to the alumni. I'm really excited about it. They beat Northern Illinois last night, 35-19, in a game where Western Michigan passed for a grand total of 32 yards. That's right. Only 32 passing yards, and they put up 35 points, predominantly because they ran the ball very well for, I think, 364 yards right down Northern Illinois' throat, which is awesome because Northern Illinois is a team that we've traditionally struggled with. So 1 game left. We are still first in the MAC, and we have the majority of the tiebreakers, but they just need to take care of business against Eastern Michigan, one of their rivals who, knock on wood, has not been great this season, so should be able to get the job done. And it's funny because I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this, you guys are probably fans of bigger colleges, like maybe you're Ohio State or Michigan State or Oregon or whoever. And to you, a conference championship may not mean anything, because for the bigger schools, it's all about playoffs. And I've really enjoyed Western Michigan's run this season pursuing this conference championship because it harkens back to a time where conference championships actually mattered in college football. Now they're just a stepping stone of, hey, I got to win my conference and I got to be highly ranked so I can get a bye in the playoff and try to go as far in the playoff as I can. And that's the only thing that matters. Something that I've called the bastardization or the in-shitification of college football. Although I have really enjoyed the last few weeks and the rankings have been pretty fun lately. But, believe it or not, there was a time where winning the Big Ten and playing in a Rose Bowl like really fucking mattered. And it wasn't that long ago. And the NIL money and college football playoff expansion and all of these different things have really changed the meaning of the bowl games. So for me in my small college and this team that is probably not going to send very many people to the NFL, we are spending NIL money, but not a lot because we're a small school on the west side of Michigan. A conference championship is meaningful to me as an alumni and to the fan base. Like I said, only have one, so it'd be super exciting to get a second. We've only won 2 bowl games in the history of Western Michigan. One when PJ Fleck took over, they won the Bahama Bowl. Then they went to the Cotton Bowl and lost. And then in Lance Taylor, I think it was first year it was Tim Lester, the coach that I hated, that I've talked about on this podcast before. 1 year with him, we played Nevada in the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, and Nevada lost like 90% of their team before that game, and we beat the absolute heck out of them. So those are Western Michigan's only 2 bowl wins. My goal for Western every year is win 6 games, win 6 or 7 games, 6, 7, and go to a bowl game and just win the bowl game. And I'm happy. A MAC championship is like so far above where I thought this team would be this year, with the quarterback issues they've had since Caleb Ellaby left, and Lance Taylor, we'll see as a head coach, but you know what? The defense has been great this year. The run game's been great. And I think that's super fun because as much as the college football playoff is fun and it's exciting when the games happen, and I'll look forward to it and I'll watch all the games. We'll probably talk about them on this podcast. There is just still something missing to me. And I was thinking about it this past weekend with Alabama losing to Oklahoma at home. So now we're going to have this super weird situation with the college football playoff where you're going to have Texas A&M versus Alabama in the SEC championship, because even though Alabama has 2 losses and they're ranked number 10 behind 3 other SEC teams, not including Texas A&M. So you got Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Georgia all ahead of Alabama. Even though Alabama has defeated Georgia this year, Georgia only has 1 loss, and it's to Alabama. As long as Alabama beats Auburn, they're going to play Texas A&M in the conference championship. So, like, all 5 of those teams I mentioned from the SEC are all going to make the college football playoff in some order as top 10 seeds, assuming that they all win their next couple of games. In Texas A&M and Georgia's case, they probably could lose a game and still make it. But if Alabama wins the SEC and they have 2 losses, and we have 1 loss Texas A&M, who Alabama beats in the SEC championship, 1 loss Georgia, who Alabama beat in the regular season, 2 loss Oklahoma, who beat Alabama, and then Ole Miss, who's all mixed up in this somewhere and has some combination of wins and losses against these teams. I have no fucking idea how the committee's going to rank them going into the college football playoff. I would say Alabama deserves a bye, but Alabama has 2 losses. Are we really going to give out byes to teams that have 2 losses? I would say, okay, well, you can't rank Georgia ahead of Alabama. Alabama beat Georgia, but Georgia only has 1 loss. Alabama has 2 losses. What do we do with that? The alternative scenario, Alabama loses the SEC championship. The precedent was set last year with SMU losing to Clemson in the conference championship game that the committee will not drop a team out of the playoffs that loses in the conference championship and put in a team that didn't even play in the conference championship. So, okay, 3-loss Alabama is going to be in the college football playoff? Does 3-loss Alabama deserve that? I don't know. I can't tell you. But we're going to have like a super weird situation with Alabama either way at this point, because they own the tiebreaker to get into the SEC championship, and I'm sure that they'll beat Auburn in a couple of weeks. I guess it's not a guarantee, but kind of everything's on the line for them. And Auburn doesn't have a whole lot to play for, so we'll see. Rivalry games get wonky. But like you got to worry about like all this stuff. And we were watching the college football playoff selection committee show that's 3 fucking hours long to reveal a list of 25 teams for some reason. And I just keep thinking about like how much of a cash grab college football is. Every single thing. Like, we have to have a reveal show on Tuesdays so you can find out what the college football playoffs are when we still have 3 more games to play, including conference championship weekend. But we got to do it every Tuesday, and people watch it and they sell ad space and do all this stuff. But you got that and NIL money, and you have players like quarterbacks who are playing really well, like Lenora Sellers, along with another guy whose name I'm blanking on. But Sam Leavitt, the quarterback from Arizona State. They're like, hey, is either of these guys expected back with their programs next year? And their camps are like, no, we're actually just going to go to the highest bidder instead of going to the NFL. We're really excited about that. So college football has completely changed. Some of it's for the better, some of it's for the worse. But this is all like why I look at this Western Michigan run and how excited I am that they could just win a conference championship and go to a bowl game. I'm like giddy. I'm super excited about it. And there's something so pure about that. And just like I said, it just harkens back to a time where the shit really mattered. And although it doesn't matter for bigger schools anymore, the shit really matters to small schools like Western Michigan, and the shit really matters to me. So let's go Broncos. beat the Eagles in a couple weeks. We'll probably record again before the Broncos and Eagles play, so we'll talk about it a little bit more next week. But let's go, Lance Taylor, win the MAC. Go to some shitty bowl game that no one on this, like nobody listening to this podcast cares about except for me, and I can watch it on my Christmas break, and I'll be excited. Go Broncos. So before I bring in Matt, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, foul.sports@gmail.com. You want to talk hockey, baseball, college football, basketball, whatever, hit me up. I will respond to you. Really appreciate your guys' emails. And as always really appreciate your support. And with that said, let's grab Matt. Let's go. All right. Matt is here, fresh off week 11 of the NFL season. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
How dare you ask that after that pre-show conversation?
Definitely can't be doing well. Back when we were messing with, God, what's that thing that puts your content behind a paywall?
Patreon?
I can't remember. Yeah, Patreon. Yeah. Back when we were messing with the Patreon, we were like, yeah, you know what we should do is like just record our pre-show stuff and put that on the Patreon. And I'm kind of glad we didn't do that with this week's episode, because that pre-show meeting should never see the light of day. Matt and I will probably get disappeared by the White House for some of the comments that we made about a certain horse named Bubba. Worst week for the president or for the horse named Bubba?
Yes.
Yeah. Bad week all around.
That's the only answer to that.
Speaking of bad weeks, I wanted to talk to you about your favorite football team, the Motor City Kitties.
I don't even really like football anymore. What are you talking about?
Wait, this is a football podcast? You told me we were going to talk about underwater basket weaving. Yeah,
that was the promise.
So the Lions lose to the Philadelphia Eagles 16-9. They are now 6-4, and they are in third place in the NFC North. If the playoffs started today, they would be on the outside looking in. I say all this not to torture you, but just to say that
that's not true.
I really respected the balls you had last week when we were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles to say that you don't believe in them, and then to make some disparaging comments about Philadelphia immediately leading up to what was one of the ugliest and nastiest games I have seen this entire NFL season.
Everything I said kind of still holds true. I don't believe anyone's complaints about the Eagles team has anything to do with their defense, which was the only side of the ball that showed up. Which has been the only side of the ball that showed up all year. Their defense was very, very good. Our defense was also very, very good. In fact, this was the third game of the season where the Detroit Lions defense has held an opposing team to under 275 yards all year. Adam, do you want to know how many of those games we have won?
This was the third time you did it?
I'm going to guess zero. Third time we've done that. We have won precisely zero of those. Zero of them.
I saw that one coming. I watched that Sunday night game, and I felt incredibly justified in everything that I said about the Eagles last week, is that their football is not pretty. It's not what most of us would call good football. It's dumb and it's sloppy and it's disgusting, but you can use all the negative adjectives you want about it, but you also have to say that it's effective, because they're now 8-2, 9-2, and they've now beat like everybody, right? They beat the Rams, the Chiefs, the Lions. They've played one of the hardest schedules in the NFL to date, and they just keep finding ways to win football games. Even if it is a little 2024 Chiefsy at some points, but it just happened again, and it was an awful watch, even if you're not a Lions fan.
But you also, because you did make the right point. It is a little 2024 Chiefsy, right? Well, the lesson that we should have taken from that team is that eventually that runs out, right? You can't just rely on that forever. Eventually, you have to win by being good. All season long, there have been some. I'm going to preface this by saying I don't think the Lions played good enough to deserve to win, even though there was certainly a call that is very questionable that I'm sure we will discuss. But they've had a couple of other games that they probably don't win if the officiating doesn't kind of bail them out. And eventually, usually in the playoffs, when a team relies on winning this way, they run into someone who plays a good enough game where they just don't need to worry about the refs.
Ironically, that team for the Chiefs last year, was the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. So, and like Philly, and Philly was playing really, really good football in the playoffs. Like their offense was unstoppable throughout the playoffs.
They were not Chiefs-y last year. They were legitimately playing incredible.
Yeah, it would be incredibly ironic if the shoe was on the other foot this year and the Chiefs were the ones that blew them out in the Super Bowl. God forbid.
There's only two fan bases that have any interest in that taking place.
Is one of them the Eagles? Because I'm not fully convinced that Eagles fans like watching this team. I don't think anybody leaves an Eagles game saying, wow, that was fun. What a great game. Can't wait until next week.
No.
It's awful. But it's been a popular week for the national media to shit on your team after that showing. And I wanted to get your feel, like kind of your temperature on where the Lions are at right now and then their Super Bowl chances.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few caveats to that. First of all, they went up against a great defense, like an elite defense. So, not expecting them to put up 30 points in that game. Second of all, Ratledge got hurt in that game a little bit. So, like, we then had two backup guards in there for a while. He ended up coming back in, but, like, both Decker and Sewell and Glasgow are all going through injuries. So, like, the health of that offensive line is not super great right now. I'm hoping that as the season goes on, just some rest days and a little bit of therapy help them physical therapy helps them kind of get into a little bit somewhat better position. They're not going to be feeling great, but that is not a matchup that an offensive line that is in that condition is going to do well with when you are dealing with Jalen Carter and a guy who I really don't feel like has gotten anywhere near enough love this year. Like, Jordan Davis has been phenomenal. Like, with the weight that he has lost, like, he has been an absolute monster. And he's still, like, one of the absolute strongest dudes in the NFL. The other thing is, like, just really uncharacteristic things. Amon-Ra St. Brown dropping balls kind of left and right, like 2 catches on 12 targets. Just him and Goff not being on the same page is really unusual. Like, that is probably the most automatic connection in the NFL. So I don't imagine that continuing to be an issue. Like, that's something they're going to get ironed out. At the end of the day, like, the offense is the concern for this team. The defense is elite. But just based on having watched this team the past 4.5 years now. I think the offense is going to get better. I don't think the offense is going to be at any point the better unit on the team. You lose Frank Ragnow, and I still think Mahogany and Ratledge are going to be great assets for this team going forward, but like they are young players that turns out when they have to go up against elite interior defensive linemen, sometimes they're going to look rough. At the end of the day, this team is still a contender. They're probably still going to win the division. And it's not going to look like the 2024 offense. And that's going to be a hard thing for people to reckon with. But that's where they need to take a look at the other side of the ball, because like the Lions defense is elite now.
Yeah, so I am a bit concerned about the Lions and their Super Bowl chances, but it's not like particularly because of this one game against Philly. It's more just like big picture is one, you said you're probably going to win the division still. I agree with that, but also like I think to have any shot at the Super Bowl, you have to win your division, because I just don't think an NFC wildcard is going to no NFC wildcard is going to be able to go like on the road in I guess if it was you guys, it'd be like on the road in Green Bay, then to LA, then to Philly, and then to the Super Bowl and win all 4 of those games. I just think that path is too difficult for anybody in the NFL, not named Drake May at this point. I had to sneak it in there. So like, I think it's going to be a necessity. And then at this point, even winning the division, you're not going to be a top 2 seed. I think that like, that's my bigger concern coming out of this game is I don't want to say it like precludes you from being a top 2 seed, but now you're 2 games behind the Eagles, 2 games behind the Rams for those top 2 seeds. So even if you do win your division, you're probably saying like, okay, home game against, like, let's say it's Green Bay or Chicago or whoever, you can win that game, but you still got to do on the road in LA, on the road in Philly, I think, unless Philly gets upset. Like, it's going to be difficult.
Let's be honest here, though. Out of those 2, only one of those do I feel like that's a disadvantage. Going to LA really hasn't been a disadvantage. The way Lions fans have traveled, like Lions games in LA have actually been like more Lions than Rams fans.
It's not necessarily that it's an advantage, like a huge advantage for LA. It's more like losing the advantage you have when you're in Detroit, because that is a massive advantage. Kind of sucks. My other things like, and I still think you'll win the division because Green Bay has the number 1 toughest strength of schedule remaining, and Chicago has number 2, and you guys have number 7, but still a little bit easier. My other thing though is I don't know that like we're talking about potentially having to win those road playoff games this season. I am not confident you're going to win those games with Jared Goff as your quarterback right now. And this, like, I know there was a really bad call to end that game the other day, and the Lions didn't deserve to lose like that. They definitely deserved another chance. But watching Jared Goff go 14 of 37 and just immediately be bad. Like, there was a couple passes early in that game where he just missed Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was wide open. And it's very uncharacteristic, but we do know that Jared Goff is one of these quarterbacks who is prone to have that game every once in a while where he just completely implodes. And I worry about that coming at the wrong time.
Yeah, that is
especially if you go
probably the biggest risk for this team in the playoffs.
Yeah. My last one, you're not going to like this, but you guys fucked up your OC hire, unfortunately. And well, the reason you're not going to like it is like the brain drain crew is kind of eaten right now with the Ben Johnson thing. I think like the Aaron Glenn thing not so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking at where your offense was last year and where it is this year.
Yeah.
And I know there's some personnel differences as well. And
yeah,
this, like, people are going to think
kind of a big part.
It's a big part. It's a big part, but like Dan Campbell taking the play calling duties away from Morton is concerning to me, because you typically like don't see that story in the middle of the season. It's like, oh, well, week 10, the head coach took the like play calling duties away from him, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl. I don't know how many times we've seen that in NFL history, but
no,
it was the right call, honestly.
He is the mastermind of the offense, though, right? Like that's the thing. But my issue with the brain drain thing with Ben Johnson is, do you guys know who Ben Johnson was before we made him OC? Like, he didn't have a playbook. Like, who do you think taught him all of this shit? It was Dan, right? So it's not that they don't have the guy in house that can do it. It is now that he is in a pressure cooker situation to get all the kinks worked out of calling an entire game of plays before the playoffs. That is the issue, right? Because he hasn't done it since 2021.
Yeah. I also just wonder if his time is better served not doing that. But it seems like you said the other side of the ball is pretty much completely under control. So, it's not like the other side of the ball is like suffering heavily from him not being there as much.
No, that's not my concern with it. It's more, when you're calling an entire game, like I don't care how smart you are, like you only have so much brain capacity, right? So, like, you're doing a whole lot of game management as a head coach, right? So that does eat into like the brain power that you're using when it comes to make a decision. And I mean, I'm all for like the gambling, going for it on fourth downs, but like I think everyone who watched that game was like, really? The fake punt? Right? Like that's the one that I think really he would like to have back and potentially like might have made a real serious difference in the game.
I want to say two nice things about Dan Campbell before I go on to the next thing. I can really respect the, like, we're going to live with it and die by it. Like, this is who we are no matter what scenario. Right. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't work and you have games like today. Other times it does work and you have these like phenomenal wins that you wouldn't pull off if you weren't like that all the time. So you got to kind of live with it sometimes. I also wanted to say that the adjustment in the Sunday Night Football game, that little like outside screenish pass that they started throwing to Gibbs. So they could not run up the middle. Goff was getting passes batted down like crazy. I think they batted 5 balls.
I think it was 3 for Davis and 2 for Carter.
Yeah, and they said they saw something in Goff's arm angle on film that they were like, we practiced that a lot last week. So they were having a lot of trouble with those two guys.
I was getting frustrated watching the game, like, because I'm like, okay, like, Goff, like at some point you got to start throwing some pump fakes here, like do something different.
Well, I really like the adjustment to do this like split out Gibbs a little bit beyond the tackle, but like kind of still in the backfield and throw it to him. And they generated a couple big plays doing that. Gibbs had over 100 receiving yards. But honestly, my biggest concern for you guys, bigger than anything I've said so far, my biggest concern for you and for many teams in the NFL, your quarterback is not Drake May. And Drake May exists. And to win the Super Bowl would mean that Drake May would have to not win the Super Bowl. And like there's just no world where that's happening because Drake May is just like the greatest thing that we have ever had ever. I just fucking love Drake May so much, Matt. It's so great. And I'm sorry that I had to torture you for the last 20 minutes only to talk about how great Drake May is, but god damn it, I love that kid. He's so great. But no, my real
If
point I was
Drake
going to make
May
though is just
loses his first playoff game, I am absolutely going to play this clip back to you so many times.
No, I mean, the unfortunate future of the Patriots is probably that they do lose their first playoff game this year. And everybody listening to this podcast, and especially Matt, better fucking pray that the Patriots lose their first playoff game this year, because you have no idea how unbearable I can actually become. No idea.
I lived with you.
It can get so much worse.
I know exactly how unbearable you can become.
We've talked about this before. We've talked about this on the podcast before. Matt knows. A lot of you don't, but Matt does because we lived together during the dynasty. But I also just want to caution people on like shitting on the Lions this week and overreacting to one game. Like I have some bigger picture concerns, but I was looking at the AFC playoff race and like especially the wild card and just looking at what a goddamn roller coaster it has been for all these teams. So like Buffalo gets a super Josh game. So Josh Allen, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns against the Buccaneers. The second time he's done that in the last 2 years. He did it to the Rams last year as well. And he's the only quarterback to ever do it. And now he's done it twice. So pretty phenomenal. But just 1 week ago, they got their shit rocked by Miami and the sky was falling in Buffalo. Last week, the Chargers beat the heck out of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 25-10. Everybody's all excited. They're like, wow, the Chargers without their 2 tackles. That's amazing. They just like stomp Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's been playing so well. Come back this week and lose 35-6 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars last week have one of the worst losses of the entire season to the Houston Texans that Matt and I talked about on Bolds and Scolds last week, where they're up like 29-10 going into the fourth quarter and then they lose. Then they come back this week and beat the absolute shit out of Jacksonville. Wasn't that long ago we were talking about how Patrick Mahomes was going to win the MVP. Now the last 2 games, Mahomes is basically back to where he was early this season, where we were questioning what was going on with him. He goes 15 of 34 against Buffalo, 29 of 45 against Denver. They lose both games to playoff teams. So the NFL is really truly a week-to-week sport where like the Lions lost this game. They're going to beat the absolute shit out of the New York Giants this weekend. They play the Rams in like 2 weeks. Wouldn't surprise me if you guys just like kill the Rams and all of a sudden we're all sitting here. We're like, wow, Detroit's back. Fantastic.
Yeah. Do you know when the last time the Lions lost 2 in a row was?
Dan Campbell's first year?
Close. First half of 2022.
Okay.
So second year.
They've been pretty goddamn good under Dan Campbell.
I kind of feel bad for what's probably going to happen to the Giants, but someone's got to take the beating.
Honestly, I wouldn't feel bad about it, except for the fact that Jameis Winston is finally starting for the Giants, and now he has to deal with this, which no fun for him.
Not going to eat a W.
Hopefully not. If he does, then we have much, much larger problems to deal with. I did want to touch on the AFC playoff picture real quick before we go on to the next segment. So I mentioned Kansas City's lost 2 in a row now and that Mahomes has not looked great lately. They are now 5-5. And I'm starting to wonder if Kansas City's going to make the playoffs at all. Honestly, I think our default answer with a lot, the playoffs, the AFC is super weird right now because it seems like there is a changing of the guard going on in front of our eyes where for the last,
Yeah.
5 years, the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, and to some degree the Texans, I guess the last couple of years have dominated their divisions. And now we're looking at a situation where it's like Colts, Patriots, Steelers, and I'm missing someone, Broncos, which is like, seems like it's 2008 all over again. And I think like it's really hard for us to accept in the moment that like maybe these teams just aren't as good anymore, where like we all had high expectations for Kansas City coming into the season.
Yeah.
And they're 5-5, so it's not necessarily like the fact that Kansas City's 5-5, but I look at like trying to project out the next however many weeks we have left. So we got 7 games left for some teams, 6 for others.
Mm-hmm.
I think the AFC playoffs are probably going to start around 10-7. So the Jags are somehow in the 6th seed right now, or the 7th seed, the final seed. They are 6-4. They have Tennessee twice, the Jets and the Cards still on their schedule. That should be 10 wins, right? So if the playoffs start at 10-7, which I know with Jacksonville is a big if, because they could actually lose all 4 of those games, being that they are the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville also has the tiebreaker over Kansas City because they beat them on that wonky Monday Night Football game. So that means Kansas City has to win 11 games, meaning they basically have to go 6-1 down the stretch to make the playoffs. LA, the Chargers might be a more likely team to fall out of the playoffs because they're 7-4, but they have Denver, Kansas City, Houston, and Philly still on the schedule. However, if they can just beat the Raiders and the Cowboys, that's 9 wins right there. And then that game against Kansas City is probably really going to decide who that wild card spot is, since the Chargers already beat Kansas City earlier this year. So I think like the default is just kind of for people to look at Kansas City and just be like, oh, they have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. It's going to be fine. They'll make the playoffs and then they'll make a Super Bowl run. And I just think that's flawed logic at this point, because just playing it out, that's tough. And then I haven't even talked about Kansas City's schedule. They have the Indianapolis Colts coming to Kansas City this weekend, which is like kind of a massive spot for both teams all of a sudden, because, Kansas City, you have to like at least go 5-2, probably get to 10 wins. Like if you lose this game and you're 5-6, you basically have to go like 5-1 in your next 6. So it gets really complicated really fast just doing the math and trying to play this out for these wild card teams.
Yeah. And I think that game is almost kind of like a lose-lose scenario for the Colts, right? Because okay, let's say you win the game. It's like, okay, well, Kansas City's 5-6 now. You still haven't really beat anyone. That'll be the narrative, right? You lose to them.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you came up against a real team and you finally lost.
2 big things to me for the Colts this weekend. One, you're 8-2, and you're now tied with the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. Well, you're not even tied with them. You're half a game behind at this point because both those teams got to 9. But so the big thing for the Colts is you're in this race against New England and Denver. You really can't afford to lose games at this point. But also, like, the narrative on the Colts and especially Daniel Jones has been, yeah, it's a cute story, but let's see what happens in the playoffs when he goes up against a really good quarterback like Mahomes or Allen.
Yeah.
And we've said it on this podcast multiple times, like neither of us are picking a team quarterback by Daniel Jones when I could pick a team quarterback by Patrick Mahomes on the other side. So if you lose this weekend, everyone's just going to be like, oh yeah, see, we knew that. Especially because Daniel Jones has played like shit in his last 2 games. You kind of like have to win this game. It's kind of an insane thing to say for a team that's up by so many games in their division right now, but you kind of have to,
but
just for your.
There's going to be no praise for it. Yeah,
I still think that going into Kansas City and beating Patrick Mahomes is like a worthwhile endeavor. They've been the measuring stick for so long that I think it's saying something to do it, but I get your point though, where it's just like they're gonna be like, yeah, man, we beat Kansas City, we're a Super Bowl
sports
contender.
Media works.
I know how this podcast is gonna work, and I'm gonna shit on them next week either way. But it's interesting, and honestly, like this whole weekend is really lit. NFL schedule makers eaten. We have the Bills and Texans on Thursday Night Football, which is kind of a huge game for all of the same reasons that I just said about Indy and Kansas City. Somehow, some way, the AFC has let the Houston Texans back into the playoff race. They are now 5-5, but you do all of the same math that I just did with Kansas City, where if you lose to Buffalo on Thursday night, you're 5-6, and you probably have to go 5-1 down the stretch to make the playoffs. And I don't know if this team can do that. Buffalo, like, yeah, man, we're feeling good. We just had this awesome Josh Allen game. We're right back in the thick of the division race. Like, no skin off our teeth. You lose this game. The Patriots are playing the Bengals this weekend with no Chase, who was suspended for spitting on Jalen Ramsey. Joe Burrow was actually a full participant in practice today. So maybe we see Burrow, but probably not. And then Denver just keeps finding ways to pull games out of their ass. So, you like, if you're the Bills, you got to like kind of find ways to keep up with these teams. Indy, KC, we talked about. You got Steelers and Bears this weekend. Two teams that have like massively overachieved so far this season. And the fact that like one of these teams is going to win this game, like, kind of baffles the mind, because the Steelers are trying to hang on to the AFC North lead with the Ravens coming fast.
Yeah.
The Bears are just like, talk about pulling games out of your ass. Like, they have a horseshoe stuck up their ass this season with all the turnovers. They're 7-3, and they're like, holy shit, we might win the NFC North. So one of them's going to win. And then you got Bucks Rams Sunday Night Football. The Buccaneers suddenly only have a half game lead over the Carolina Panthers. After being like 6-2, they're 6-4 now, and they're only a half game ahead of Carolina for the NFC South lead. So Carolina also only one game back in the wild card right now as well. They play San Francisco on Monday Night Football. And like, again, they're only a game behind San Francisco. They play San Francisco. San Francisco defense has not been good since Fred Warner went down. Like, there's so much. There is so much this weekend. Yeah. That has like massive playoff implications. I think it's going to be a fun weekend of football.
Yeah. We got some bangers after kind of a couple of mostly down weeks.
Yeah. Yep. At least like we have interesting games. Hopefully they're good. I could see that. Like,
yeah,
I'm excited for the Thursday Night Football game, Bills and Texans tomorrow. Coming out, it'll be the day this podcast released, but I could also see that game being shitty. Like, if Josh Allen just keeps going scorched earth. I scolded the Bills last week, and my one caveat was like, I could see a world where Josh Allen just comes out and annihilates everybody. And he certainly did that on Sunday. So Bolds and Scolds, week 11 of the NFL season. I think it's your week to go first. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Okay.
Took me 11 weeks to fuck this up, but you go first with your bold.
Okay. My bold is Bryce Young. My God, did this man need a win? And not just in the win column, he needed to win in a big game. And boy, Adam, did he fucking have a big game. This past week, Bryce Young went 31 for 45. That is a completion percentage of 69%. Very nice.
Nice.
That in and of itself would be worth a bold. However, he also threw for a career high 448 yards in this game, for 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Just absolutely monster game. There were plenty of protection issues in that game too, so it's not like he was, throwing from basically a cushioned living room or something like that. Like he was taking his hits in that game. They're really big time performance for him. Like, for his sake, hopefully this can kind of be something he builds on going forward to play more consistently, because he just hasn't had big games like this. Like, this is his first 300-yard performance in his career was earlier this season in week 2. This is his second game over 300 yards. Like, he needed this, and hopefully this will build his confidence so that he can kind of move forward to be more like this guy, because it's in there.
Another roller coaster team. I want to remind everybody that Bryce Young is the quarterback who fucked us against the New Orleans Saints just 1 week ago.
Right.
Is this something that he can build on, or did he just play the Atlanta Falcons? Because that's seems to be the salve for a lot of issues.
I kind of feel like I need to go and look at the stats, because they're like a dead average defense in the NFL. But that could be because every other game they play lights out and then are the worst team in the NFL the next week.
You know what the insane thing is? They're not an average defense. They've been the best passing defense in the NFL almost the entire year.
Yeah.
In terms of yards, and they've been the number one in sacks and pressure rate, and number one against the pass, and yet they're fucking 3-8.
Yeah,
and even after this
I was going off of total yardage. I think they're 16th, but yeah.
Yeah, even after this game though, they're 6th against the pass.
Yeah.
And I've watched a lot of Atlanta this year, and I've never seen one game where I felt like they were a top 10 team in any facet or category, except for Bijan Robinson. And I guess I don't understand statistics, because I've watched them a lot, and I don't understand how they only allow 188 passing yards per game.
The big thing is no one can understand the Atlanta Falcons, and we all need to stop trying.
How is their mysteriousness so mysteriousness? And in not being able to understand it, it is unstoppable. How is their unstoppableness so unstoppable? What game did the Atlanta Falcons allow less than 188 passing yards this season? How are they only allowing 188 per game? The math ain't mathin'. But it's remember when we did NBA top 30 this past summer, and nobody voted for Cade Cunningham? Was it Cade? I think it was Cade. It was someone. Nobody had him as high as the composite rankings did.
Yes.
But just by virtue of us having random votes all around him, he moved up in the composite rankings. So nobody voted for him higher than 15th, but he ended up 13th. That's how I feel like the Atlanta Falcons
I think no one voted for him higher than 13th, but he ended up 12th.
Yeah, whatever it was. I think that's what's going on with the Atlanta Falcons pass defense, is that they've allowed more than 188 yards in every game, but somehow they only allow 188 yards per game. And in this game, they allowed over 400, and I don't understand it. My bold is Mark Andrews, the tight end for the Ravens. So Mark became the Ravens' all-time receiving yardage leader on Sunday, passing Derek Mason's number of 5,778, which was the previous franchise marker. Want to remind everybody that the Ravens fans hate Mark Andrews still, because a lot of them blame him for costing them that playoff game against Buffalo last year. And to be fair, probably rightly so, because that was not a great game for Mark Andrews. And there was a lot of talk about trading him this offseason and not bringing him back into Baltimore. But he was already the franchise's all-time leader in receiving touchdowns. He passed Todd Heap a long time ago, passed Derek Mason for most receiving yards in franchise history this week. And then this upcoming game, their next game, he will very likely pass Derek Mason for most catches as a Raven, because he is only 3 behind Derek Mason right now. And it was kind of a nice moment for him on Sunday, like to do that and to, you know, little celebration for him after how shitty the last 365 days have been for him. So before we go to Scolds, I want to ask you a question. When you think about Derek Mason, what jersey do you picture him in? Like, what team does Derek Mason belong to you?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I don't really think about Derek Mason.
That's fair. These are topics that only I think about. I was like, oh, wow, Derek Mason is the Ravens' all-time leader in catches and yards. And I see Derek Mason as a Titan.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the correct team.
I was just wondering, though, if there's anybody else like that out there. Maybe I'll have to look it up. But, like, is there any other player who's, like, another franchise's all-time leader in something, and yet you don't associate them with that franchise at all? Like, I can't think of anybody that would be like that, you know? Like, you know, Peyton Manning went and won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, but he's always going to be a Colt. Tom Brady won one with the Bucks, but he's always going to be a Pat. Stafford, even though he's had such a good career with the Rams, I feel like most people are always going to think of him as a Lion. Like, I just don't think there's many players out there where it's like, oh yeah, that guy is that franchise's all-time career leader in receptions and receiving yards, but nobody thinks of him as a Raven because he was so famous for being a Titan, you know?
Yeah.
I remember him as a Titan. There was a whole movie about that. Scolds for week 11.
You
and
deserve
it
a
can,
scold for that one.
Could be me. You could change your answer.
I'm considering it.
Great movie.
However,
all about Derek Mason,
based
who Matt doesn't think about. You should watch the movie, Matt. You should remember that Titan.
I remember that movie well enough to know that Derek Mason is not in that movie.
That should be like a YouTube short of like it's gonna be like a fouled out game. It's like, remember that Titan, and we'll give you clues to who the Titan is, and you got to tell us. Derek Mason not in Remember the Titans. You know who was in Remember the Titans?
I mean,
someone very near and but someone very near and dear to our hearts.
Oh, God, why am I blanking on his name? Donald Faison.
Yeah, Turk. Turk was in Remember the Titans. Chocolate Bear was in Remember the Titans. Yeah, hell yeah. All right, who's your Scold? Week 11.
Well, this is due to how I have been feeling this week, as well as how my entire fan base has been feeling this week. The 2024 Lions. How dare you give us expectations? Going 15-2 in a season where literally an entire defense is on IR just completely skews a fan base's idea of how much their team should be winning. And it makes every loss feel like so much worse than it actually is. The Lions are 6-4 right now. And honestly, that is a completely reasonable record for a team in the playoff hunt to be at this point in a season. Like, unless you're, 3 games behind the team in your division, like, you're really not in a bad space there at all. But God, like, I don't like the year after the year with which I'm sure you don't want to talk about. I can imagine that how you reacted to losses.
No, hold on. This is about your team sucking. This isn't about my team sucking. Don't drag me into this.
I can imagine that you probably reacted stronger to losses that year than you did any other year.
I did not. Do you know why? You remember what happened the year after we had the undefeated season that lost in the Super Bowl? You know what happened the first fucking game of 2008? Do fans remember? Tom Brady tore his fucking ACL the first game of the next season.
That's right.
So at that point, I had already lost everything at that point. Oh my
God.
Being, how old was I? An 18-year-old watching Tom Brady get his ACL torn.
Was that year. God.
Yeah. It was immediate. It was in the first quarter or the second quarter of the first game that season. And being 18 years old, the Patriots were all in
on Matt Castle.
I didn't know who Matt Castle was, Matt. You were the only Matt I knew. I didn't know Matt Castle.
Neither did anyone else because he didn't even play at USC.
Yeah, Matt Castle was a backup at USC who we drafted. And credit to Matt Castle. He was pretty good that year, but I had already lost everything, Matt. You couldn't take anything from me. And do you remember what our record was with Matt Castle that year?
I want to say it was 11-5, 10-6, something like that.
It was 11-5. It was 11-5. And did we make the playoffs at 11-5? Great trivia question.
No.
We did not make the playoffs at 11-5 because Miami was also 11-5. I believe the Jets won the division that year, or the other way around, something like that. And the 8-8 Chargers won the AFC West and made the playoffs, and the 11-5 Patriots, led by Matt Castle, sat home. Thank you for reminding me of one of the shittiest 48 months of being a Patriots fan in a segment about your team letting you down.
Cry me a river?
I have Drake May now. I have no reason to cry. I was just going to say that years after soul-crushing playoff defeats, it's always harder, right? So 2011, we also lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl, which thank you for taking me down this wonderful trip down memory lane. It's greatly appreciated. 2012, we came back, and that was the year where it was oh, hell yeah, it's revenge time. Let's go. And it was not revenge time. It was not revenge time for a long time after that. So I understand your point. I also was getting ready to make a joke about Donald Faison playing Derek Mason and Remember the Titans. And then you said your scold was the 2024 Lions, and I almost choked on my own tongue. So wonderful segment.
What's your scold?
I feel like I could do this one every week. My scold is the Atlanta Falcons. So the Atlanta Falcons lose a super Falcon-y game to the Carolina Panthers in overtime. Matt already went over the fact that Bryce Young had not only his first 400-yard game, but only his second 300-yard game of his career, and it was for 450, whatever it was. More importantly, with the Atlanta Falcons, they are 3-8 now. I want to remind everybody on this podcast, less than a year ago, during the 2025 NFL Draft, the Falcons traded their first-round pick this year for the number 26 pick in the draft, with which they took James Pierce, an edge rusher who he's been no good in Atlanta for spurts this season. It was a very highly criticized trade at the time to trade your future first for number 26 overall. And I came on this podcast and absolutely lambasted it and said, best case scenario, this pick is never going to be higher than number 26 next year. And I said the words on the podcast. Worst case scenario, Michael Penix Jr. sucks. And you just gave the LA Rams a massive asset. Well, guess what? We are here, 7 months later after the draft. Michael Penix Jr. does suck and has led them to a 3-8 record. Even more unfortunate than Michael Penix Jr. sucking, he's having season-ending surgery. Yeah. So the 3-8 Falcons are handing the season to Kirk Cousins. And we saw Kirk Cousins play this year. We saw how fucking bad it is at this point.
Yep.
And the fact that they can't even get Bijan Robinson going with Kirk Cousins because they run a lot of outside zone and Kirk Cousins cannot get the handoff to the right spot for outside zone. So
just
you have a 3-8 team who, if the draft occurred tomorrow, Atlanta would be giving the Rams the 8th overall pick in the draft. And it has the opportunity to get so much worse over these last 6 or 7 games.
Yeah.
6, 7.
No, don't do it.
But this can get so much worse for the Falcons. Like, this pick could be a top 6 pick. It could be a top 5 pick. Are the Atlanta Falcons going to win another game this season, Matt, with Kirk Cousins at their quarterback? Like, this is like all-time disaster level for the Atlanta Falcons right now. And just the Rams are just sitting back and being like, yeah. Like, what if the Rams use that pick to draft their next franchise quarterback?
I mean,
with Stafford retiring in the next couple of years.
I think the only silver lining for Atlanta here is that this is not a good year for quarterbacks. Supposedly.
It doesn't mean that one won't hit, especially if they're drafted and developed by Sean McVay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
no, it's atrocious, and even if the Rams decide not to go quarterback there, it's just the rich getting richer. Like,
yeah, cool, great. The Rams added Caleb Downs.
Right.
Fantastic. The Rams secondary sucks. We added Caleb Downs. Haha. We added Jordan Tyson. We added, Spencer Fano. We fixed our offensive line for the next 15 years. Like, there's a lot of good players in this draft still, even if the quarterbacks aren't as rich as they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I trust the Rams to nail that pick.
Yeah.
Especially because it's the Falcons pick, and the Falcons obviously have to regret this for the rest of forever.
I mean, that is their job, is to be punished.
Sucks to suck. But
yeah.
That is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can see us on YouTube. Look up Fouled Out Sports. You can see me sitting in my parents' beautiful kitchen now that my house is being renovated. All of our shorts have also moved to YouTube instead of TikTok, so go check those out there. Matt, NBA take of the week. Before we sign off, what do you got?
Well, there have been many years in the past where we knew what the inevitable NBA Finals would be. And I'm here to tell you that this year is one of those years. The NBA Finals, it's unavoidable. It's going to be OKC versus Detroit. These are in my opinion, from all the basketball, I've watched so much more basketball this year in so many years. Like, these are clearly just the two best teams. Is
it coincidental that the Pistons are the best team in the East this season? for like you watching a lot of basketball, or
That has certainly helped.
guess how much basketball I've watched this season?
None.
Fucking hate my team so much.
Neither of these two teams are at full strength now. Like, both of these teams are still waiting on key contributors to come back. It's just so clear to me that like these are the two best teams in their respective conferences.
I'm not going to argue with you. I agree. My take of the week, the NBA apocalypse scenario is upon us. And it doesn't have anything to do with gambling. It doesn't have anything to do with ratings or any of that. It is purely on the court. Matt, the Oklahoma City Thunder are the best team in the NBA. They're 14-1. Mm-hmm. They are beating opponents by an average of 15.5 points per game. They won last year's NBA Finals. Their second best player, Jalen Williams, has not played a game this season.
Oh, I'm all too aware of that.
Yes.
He's on my IR.
Oh, hold on. I'm not done yet. Thanks to the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George swap, Oklahoma City owns the unprotected rights to the LA Clippers first round pick this season. The LA Clippers are 4-10 and Kawhi Leonard is hurt. It does not look like it's going to get better soon. To make matters worse, the top 3 in this draft class is one of the best top 3s we have ever had.
Yeah. In
a draft class. You don't have like the generational Victor Wembanyama like type of prospect, but Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, and AJ DeBansta make up one of the nastiest and best top 3s we have ever seen. Like 3 dudes with legitimate potential to be superstars in this league.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City could win 73 games this season, win the NBA championship, and then pick in the top 3 of one of the best drafts we've had in a long time. It's like a very realistic scenario at this point. So I say all that to say that my NBA take of the week is I just would never trade a unprotected future first. Ever. Because on top of the fact that OKC owns the rights to LA's unprotected first, along with more future picks that they own of the Clippers. I want to take you back to the NBA draft, similar to what I just did with the Atlanta Falcons, and remind you, the New Orleans Pelicans traded away their unprotected first this year for Derek Queen, the 13th pick in the draft last year. Derek Queen averaging 11, 6, and 3. You know, respectable enough for the 13th pick in the NBA draft.
Rookie year.
Yeah. New Orleans is in last place in the West at 2-12.
Yes.
And they owed their unprotected pick in a transformational draft to the Atlanta Hawks. So.
But hey, Zion's skinny now.
Just. I think it's a bigger problem for them that Zion's been healthy and they're still 2-12.
Yeah.
And owe their pick to someone else. This like always comes back to fuck you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, in New Orleans scenario, we knew during the draft, we were like, what is this team doing? It was immediately bad. The Shai Gilgeous thing, like, just when you thought the worst trade in NBA history could not get any worse, here we are in the year of our Lord 2025, and it's gotten worse. It's gotten so much worse because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is second best player in the league, just won Finals MVP and MVP. He's balling again this year. He's awesome. Like, just Shai by himself for Paul George is bad enough. The fact that one of those picks could be another legitimate NBA superstar. Like, if they pick AJ DeBansta and add him to this team, I'm going to lose my shit. It is hands down the worst trade in NBA history, and it just keeps getting worse. It just keeps getting worse.
And this is coming on the heels of the Luka trade.
Yeah. And like, I think it was like last week where I was like, the Luka trade is the worst trade in the history of basketball. Nope. I was wrong. Yeah. I take that back. That I forgot about this trade somehow. This is the worst trade in the history of sports.
Yeah.
Truly. It truly is. Seeing how good OKC is now and how bad the Clippers are, and the fact the Clippers never got it done.
You omitted another team that gave away an unprotected first this offseason as well. Actually, I feel like a lot of teams did, but Orlando as well. Is Desmond Bane really worth that right now?
Yep. And I said this when that happened too, is I was like, hey, look, we're the Orlando Magic. We don't have like an extremely long history of picking first overall in the NBA draft. Shaquille O'Neal, Dwight Howard, and Paolo Banchero. Great. Along with, didn't they pick Chris Webber first overall or second overall? And then they traded him for Hardaway and 3 first. I think he was like second overall in that draft. I'd have to remember, but the balls have certainly bounced the Orlando Magic's way in the past.
Yeah.
And yeah, like honestly, if the Clippers are like bad enough to have really good odds at like, we'll see, because we're 14 games into a very long season, right? If it does get to the point for the NBA lottery where there is a real scenario where the Thunder could get a top 3 pick, I think like honestly, Adam Silver has to step in and rig this shit. Just like they did last year. Rig it again,
Adam. Last year?
You mean
every year?
Every year. Every year. This will be the one year where Adam's like, look, we're under a lot of pressure. We can't rig this shit. And it's just like, wait, the Thunder got the top 3 picks in the draft? How did that happen? All 3 of those guys are going to be on the Thunder. But, I mean, honestly, though, like, it's hard to be mad at the Thunder for just being smarter and better than everybody else.
Yeah.
It's not like they're the Lakers and they're just like, we're just going to go out and sign every free agent that exists and luck into Luka Doncic. Like, it's just good, smart basketball building that has a shitload of longevity to it in a very small market. And it's impressive. And I just wish it wasn't the team that was stolen from Seattle.
Yeah.
Because that sucks.
Yeah, that does suck. I mean, this is the argument for the second apron.
Well, but the thing about the second apron is like, do the Thunder deserve to have their team blown up by financials? A team that they've built like better and smarter than everybody else.
No, I don't disagree with you there. And like, for competitive balance's sake too, like, you can't just have like all of the best players on the same team.
I don't know, but it's not like the Miami Heat like going out and like signing LeBron and Bosh. Like they made a smart trade and they got Shea, and then they've just drafted phenomenally well. Like J-Dub was a late lottery pick. They had that Holmgren pick. Like the thing with the Thunder too is like they just keep drafting guys who are awesome. The kid's name is escaping me, but there's a kid who's like a second or third year guy. I'm trying to look it up while we're talking. Who has stepped in for J-Dub this season and just been Mitchell.
Yeah.
Ajay Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just like another guy they drafted who's just like, oh, hey, J-Dub's out. Here's Ajay Mitchell. He's fucking awesome. Oh, he's out. Here's another guard. Here's another guard we drafted. Like, they just draft and develop and make smarter moves than everybody else. And eventually it's going to get to the point where they can't keep it together because of the second apron. And is it really fair to punish a team like that when you should be punishing teams like the Miami Heat who are like, hey, we bought a super team and made LeBron and Chris Bosh leave the teams that drafted them? I don't know. That's a debate for another day. But for now, we are signing off. Like I said, awesome weekend of NFL football this weekend. Not so great weekend of college football. So like, do your family stuff on Saturday so you're available on Sunday. That's the move. Matt and I will be back next week. Same fouled out place, same fouled out time, right in my parents' kitchen, talking about week 12 and looking forward to week 13. Until then, my friend, I will see you soon.
Yep. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye, Mom.
Bye, Robin.